This conference will now be recorded.
Good day, everyone, and thank you for joining our fourth chapter in our monthly Cybersecure Canada webinar series, Enable Security Software. My name is Brendan Dunphy. I am the Director of Trust and Compliance with CyberNB Inc. This webinar will be recorded. Participants can ask questions via the chat box. We will address questions during the Q&A portion at the end of the presentations, time permitting, of course. Any questions that are not addressed can be asked via email to info@sourcetekit.com or info@cybernb.ca. So let's get started. Today's topic will be Enable Security Software, featuring Rajiv Jolly from SourcetekIT as our industry guest speaker. Raj will be presenting on the benefits and best practices when enabling security software and how this will meet the control requirements of Cybersecure Canada certification. Before we dive into his presentation, I will give a brief overview of Cybersecure Canada's certification program. Cybersecure Canada was designed by Canadians to protect Canadian organizations. It is based on 13 security control areas developed by the Canadian Centre for Cybersecurity, and they are, as shown on the screen here, develop an incident response plan, secure portable media, implement access control and authorization, provide employee awareness training, use strong user authentication, securely configure devices, backup and encrypt data, secure websites, establish basic perimeter defenses, automatically patch operating systems, secure mobility, secure cloud and outsourced IT services, and of course, our topic today, enable security software. For more in-depth information overview of each control, please visit our website to view the baseline cybersecurity controls for small and medium organizations document, which details each control under this framework and each control requirement. Each month, we will be presenting on one control topic per month to provide more details on the controls and what Cybersecure Canada compliance is looking for when implementing these controls. So don't forget to join us for our next chapter in the monthly webinar series in October. The topic will be Cybersecure Canada Control Topic 4, Securely Configured Devices. This webinar will focus on the Cybersecure Canada requirements under this control topic and the benefits of cyber hygiene it provides. The webinar will also feature an industry guest speaker from our trusted partner network. So the program goals for Cybersecure Canada are to improve Canada's small and medium business cybersecurity baseline, basically raise the bar for their hygiene and help them protect themselves better. They also want to raise awareness and educate all Canadians about cybersecurity. The more you know, the better in this field. And of course, increase consumer confidence in the digital economy of Canada, opening up doors for opportunities in other markets and jurisdictions. So, certification process. To get started, you can register to the secure online cyber web portal by going to cyberessentialscanada.ca and clicking register. Once you log in, you would complete the compliance roadmap and then submit for certification review. At that time, you'd be contacted and asked to select from one of the 4 accredited certification bodies under the Cybersecure Canada program. The selected certification body would then review your submission, and if everything is compliant, then you would achieve certification for a 2-year period. And then after that, you would recertify on a 2-year basis. Certification bodies are third-party organizations who are trained and accredited as certification assessors by the Standards Council of Canada to support the Cybersecure Canada program. The Cybersecure Canada accredited certification bodies include SourcetekIT, who will be presenting on enabling security software for us today, Cybersecurity Canada, Bulletproof Solutions, and WATSEC Cyber Risk Management. Cost for certification. CyberNB provides organizations the ability to register to our secure online portal for $350 Canadian plus applicable taxes. This covers access to the online toolset to process the Cybersecure Canada requirements all in one spot. Certification review cost is set by the selected certification body and billed directly from the CB to the customer. Cybersecure Canada certification mark. Once certified, you will receive official recognition that Canadian government recognized cybersecurity controls are in place. This badge of trust also provides organizations an easy way to let customers and stakeholders know they have decreased their cyber risk. And you can see examples in French and English on the screen. Those are the certification marks for the 2-year period. Cyber insurance. So we are very pleased to announce a new agreement with Hub International and CyberNB Inc. This agreement with Hub will ensure all organizations processing cyber certification to our secure online portal will not only be eligible for cybersecurity insurance, but will receive preferred rates as well. So you'll be able to transfer your risk with the right insurance coverage. Cyber certification supports right-sized policy coverage as organizations will be seen as de-risked. It will help avoid overlap of extra policy costs. If you're interested in getting cyber certified today to start saving on your cyber insurance now, you can visit our website, cyberessentialscanada.ca. Okay, so as part of our monthly Partner Spotlight series, we will be showcasing a specific partner and the unique offering to the Cybersecure program. September's Partner Spotlight features SourcetekIT. Escape, Raj, can you?
Hi, I can share my screen.
Just 1 second here. Somebody, I need to mute everybody. I'm getting some feedback. September's Partner Spotlight features SourcetekIT. SourcetekIT has had a key role in the development and support of the Cybersecure Canada program. They are an accredited certification body and also offer practitioner services to assist with certification preparation. We have a Partner Spotlight page on our website, cyberessentialscanada.ca, showcasing SourcetekIT's specific offering in this space, as well as a blog featuring Rajiv Jolly, Chief Executive Officer of SourcetekIT. Please visit our website to check it out. I would now like to introduce our industry guest speaker, Raj Jolly. SourcetekIT was founded in 2009 by CEO and founder Raj Jolly. Raj is an experienced leader and innovator with a great commitment and passion for cybersecurity. Driven by his vision, he takes pride in providing the best-in-class managed and professional services possible. As a CEO, his goals include leading the development and implementation of SourcetekIT's overall strategy while providing value and expertise to his customers. Mr. Jolly says the biggest challenge today for a cybersecurity firm is the knowledge gap among customers. So one of his missions is to provide as much information and training so customers understand the potential risks. As I stated earlier, there will be a questions and answers section at the end of the presentation. If we don't address your question, you can reach out to info@sourcetekit.com or go to cyberessentialscanada.ca and select the contact us option. So I'll stop sharing my screen now, Raj, and I'll make you a presenter.
Thank you. Okay, I'm sorry, I'm having random issues with sharing because the software is asking to restart for some reason.
Okay, just one second. I'll bring up your. There you go, Raj.
Great, thank you. Well, welcome everyone. We will try to explain a little bit more on enabled security software on this session. And of course, like Brendan said, we can take some questions at the end of the presentation. I'll go to the next slide. Okay, so these are the key description of these two controls. One is organizations should protect themselves against the threat posed by known malware. So you can do that in many ways. You can have your antivirus as a basic setup for every device. That includes your mobiles as well, your tablets, that's accessing your corporate network. By securing configuration, enabling antivirus and anti-malware software feasible on all connected devices. So when we say all connected, like I said, it will cover your tablets, mobile, your desktops, your laptops. The next under the same control is should activate any software firewall. We're all familiar with Windows firewall, but we will a little bit explain more how we can achieve that onto the different devices. And anybody that's on any device that's on the network, on your corporate network, must have some sort of a control, firewall or other applications that can manipulate the data that's going in and out, irrelevant to what type of device it is on the network. I'm going to go next slide. I think so. There are many type of malware that exist, and then when we are going through these controls, usually the task is to scan, and in regular basic antivirus solution might not be able to catch this. There might be something that's left behind that's nobody's aware of. So this is why this is almost quite essential control to be in place and validated. It's easy to miss, and it can fail you by passing your goal toward the certification. And there can be any type. If you're not familiar with it, our assessment will be able to bring that out. It can be worm, it could be keyloggers, it could be rootkit that's installed but not caught by your regular antivirus solution. And so we have to have a solid software on your end devices that can relate to any or all of these type of malwares that's enabled. I think it's coming one by one. Like, yeah, there's Trojan horses, keyloggers. Believe it or not, we have found, especially the keyloggers, on quite a few devices in the past scans that we have performed. And sometimes those are also implemented on your other devices, like your Linux or your other tablets or the devices that are hooked up to your cache register type of softwares. Go to the next slide. So who is implementing? The first is management. Yes, they're not actually implementing the solution, but approval from the management is the must. From our perspective, understanding what that is and how to implement it's a big need that needs to be explained to board of directors, to management, the stakeholders. They all should have a very good understanding of what it actually is and how should this be implemented. Above that, they should have a very good understanding who owns it, right? Who's updating it. So having a one-time install or upgrades, but then not following up, the software hasn't been updated, that all understanding has to be coming from the management. If you have your managed service provider, they are equally responsible. Once you have the solution implemented, usually with our experience, some of the MSPs are not following a solution, so keeping this antivirus up to date. That is a must. Having is one thing, not having an upgraded version or constant solution where it's being updated, it's also needed. Because during the audit process, on our scan, we have found that the solution exists, but hasn't been updated to the latest versions or the signatures. So for that, we will say management should keep close eye on your MSP or help desk and make sure this is part of your control, how regularly they are being updated. So go to the next one. So this what to implement, that's always a question. There are obviously many choices out there, and they are confusing. Are we going with traditional AV? Are we going with next-gen antivirus? Are we going to endpoint detection and response? What's the basic and what's needed to pass this control is as good as traditional antivirus, because these controls are based on two parts. One is antivirus and one's firewall. But sometimes, if you don't want to handle two different type of solution, having a endpoint detection and response might work for your antivirus and firewall. Both controls can be dealt with under one solution. So you not necessarily need a basic antivirus and endpoint protection or NGAV. So you can get away but not having AV, but having NGAV or EDR that can handle both of these controls, which is antivirus and firewall at basics. So the next slide. Why to implement? What's our focus and what's the need for it? Basically, to prevent, detect, respond, and recovery. Prevention is the best thing. So if you're not preventing, so this is why Cybersecure Canada emphasize on this solution a lot, because it prevents you from basic security. Like, it's not preventing you from security. It's important to have this basic security levels. The basic antivirus is the least requirement. But having antivirus, you should be able to detect the most recent threats. And most recent threats might not be able to do, and the antivirus solution might not be able to detect the most recent threats unless you have your next NGAV or other solutions, endpoint detection solutions implemented. Respond. Respond is equally important, because otherwise you will not be able to maintain your controls if you don't have a respond identified in there. So we're always looking for, after detection, what is your response plan? What are you looking for? How would you mitigate that risk? And recovery, just like a ransomware. What is your plan if you get hit by a ransomware? How will you plan to recover your data? That's also being handled under this control. So these four elements are equally important: prevention, detection, response, and recovery. They all fall into this controls. Next question is where to implement. Having a desktop or tablets or phones or other devices, we see that, but sometimes we're missing the cloud, we're missing our elements, we're missing our applications. Those are more essential part of your network. So we should always have EDR, NGAV, the type of solution on your application servers. It could be your AD, it could be your SQL servers, it could be your other application or custom applications. Most important part of the whole thing is if you have a server like AS400 or other application servers that cannot handle the regular, even regular basic AV, forget about the NGAV or EDR solution, then the next solution for that we'll be looking for is the segmentation of your network. Can you secure the segment of the network where this server is hosted? It could be your firewall rule sets. It could be a different element that's between the two segments of your network or different VLANs, right? That's also acceptable for those type of solutions. But you should always have, like we said, all the 4 elements. You should have a plan in place to recover if you get hit by any of the ransomware type of attacks, which is fairly common these days. So that's why these basic controls can avoid a lot of hassles for you, and it's a very important part of security for your organization. So we're going to handle governance requirements. So under your policy, you must have all these elements addressed. Who? So like we mentioned, who's responsible to manage and install anti-malware? Is it your MSP? Is it your help desk individual, locally, or the owner himself for a very small business? But somebody should be identified who's responsible for it. What? Okay, so what should be the minimum capabilities of anti-malware software? That's equally important. That also depends on the type of application that you're running. So if you have an application that's not crucial, right, you can get away with local antivirus. But if you have redundancy or plans, so somehow the idea is how to keep secure. So that's very important. And it's very important to understand what the differences are, just like we talked about before, a basic antivirus and the difference between NGAV or your endpoint detection software. You should spend some time understanding what's important. Out of the 3, can it handle both of both elements of your controls? When should you define the scan frequency? So again, having is one thing, and if it's not being patched or upgraded on frequent basis, like everybody probably knows Microsoft Tuesday patches and whatnot. So we should have a schedule when it's going to scan twice a day, daily, away from your network infrastructure. So there's always some time and planning is needed on when to enable that scan, because in some environment, if you have a SAN devices running, if you have other softwares running, that might have an impact on the AV scan. So because scanning on a certain time during the day can generate a lot of traffic on your network, depending on how big or large the environment is. So at the same time, if you have other elements running like backups or other application syncing or databases, recovering or getting things between the 2 data centers, can fail your antivirus scans as well. And scan might not happen until the next time it's scheduled to scan. In between, there might be a gap. And that's why it's very important to understand when to have that scan scheduled. Where is equally important. So where devices or anti-malware software should be installed, right? So like we said, in your data center, your laptops, sometimes your laptops from your sales staff, we have seen they take them home, or they're taking it with themselves, or they're going away from the office. They miss the regular patch because the application wasn't up. So where is equally important. So no part of the network should be excluded. So when it's connecting back, it can bring the virus back with it. So in other certification, what we have seen is we can certify one segment, but in this case, when it comes to cyber security, any device that's on your network should be enabled to have the scans. They should have a basic antivirus, and they should have a firewall of some type. Access controls. This is equally important. When you're installing your antivirus and patching, we should not allow local users to be able to enable or disable antivirus. That's also very, very important, because we have seen on the local devices, especially in the laptop, they have admin privileges for everything on the laptop. What end up happening is, if it's slowing down their computer, if they think it's slowing down their computer, they disable the antivirus. Or if they want to play a game at home, what we have seen is they will disable the antivirus. It might not get activated, might not get updated. So we always check for those access controls. I mean, do they have local access? That definitely defeats the purpose of having an antivirus installed. If somebody can manipulate that and bypass the upgrade policies or change the behavior of your antivirus, you're still deviating away from the actual cause. Procedure. Every section of this should have a sandbox or a dev environment. If not, like even a single laptop used as a dev environment is sufficient. Installing a new software might react with your antivirus. So you should always test your application to make sure it's working. And most of the time it does. But if you experience a problem, your provider always have some patch that you can work with. If you're reading the McAfee or any other antivirus or NGAV, they always have a patch. If you're having an issue, they have a solution, but we should have a separate, even a single device, we can call it a dev or a sandbox, where you can play with, rather than bringing down the whole environment. So we always look for, do you have a procedure, right? Where are you trying to install this first before you launch that in productions? Ports, list of open service ports. So ports are also very important, because there will be application they're calling home, or they have a cloud, or there's some alerts ports, or there are ports that require to upgrade your solutions. So we should always list those ports relevant to your antivirus, because sometimes we think this port is enabled, but if you open up your external firewall for anything and everything, you're more prone to get hacked from externally, thinking that your antivirus is probably calling home or asking for an upgrade or patches. So this is why list of open service ports are very important to have. So we know at any given time, we can trace back the behavior, we can trace back what has actually happened. And this is very crucial for you in general in case of forensic evidences, right? So you should always know what your ports were, and they're the only ports should be open on your firewalls. Compliance. Again, if you have all this in your controls, compliance is easy. But for us, as external body coming in, we are looking for all these elements to be in your controls. And for another compliance, we should always address other applications that are running on within your environment. Do they need any certification or compliance, specialized when you're holding any credit card type of information? And do you have any controls to validate or handle those type of transactions? So there's an example of a type of service that we provide, which we call it SaaS, or security as a service. I'm sure your managed service provider should be able to handle this type of testing or service. We have seen a lot of success having this type of service for the end customer, where the endpoint are managed 24/7, 365. Internal vulnerability testing, scans, just in case somebody enabled, disabled the firewall, somebody's playing with their applications or not, or another vulnerability has come in, even though it with a genuine application, genuine Microsoft Windows have left some port open for any other for accommodate any other applications. So time to time, you should always have your internal vulnerability testing done. External pen test, like we said, the ports are equally important. So if you have left your firewall open, or a port that you left open for some weekend transactions or elements or application to function, and you forgot to close, so time to time having a penetration testing is also very, very important to figure out your external files are operating as it should. Backup main servers. So all your servers must be backup and must be encrypted, right? So God forbid if you're hit by a ransomware type of attack where everything is encrypted and you have a server weren't backup or weren't encrypted, or sometimes what we have seen, your backup device is connected to the server. So ransomware attack, what it will do is it's not just going to encrypt your server, it will also encrypt your backup. So you should have Acronis or some similar type of software that can encrypt your backup. Also, we always recommend at least minimum once a week for smaller organization to have a backup away from your location. Offline backup is also necessary. The domain protection servers. So if you are being planned, right? If your emails are hacked, or if your IDs or credentials been hacked, and there's no way of knowing that, we also provide that service. So we're always monitoring activities on your domain. So if somebody is setting up some credentials or some aliases for your domain, that should also be scanned in the deep web, so you can figure out, yes, there might be an action happening, there might be a spam emails coming, and this is why this service is very important. It does cover all your 4 or 5 elements that are necessary to function and secure for these controls. Okay, next. So all in the cloud, what our experience shows is having an Azure or AWS or any other type of cloud, we assume that our servers are now secured or safe. We have seen that with many, many customers. They come back and thinking, yeah, no, we are okay because it's hosted. And if you do a quick search on the web, you can easily find how many times Azure ports were left open. It was a big topic on Microsoft Bing server. That was the port were accidentally left open. There was time a few months ago. There was where certain part of the database which relates to Azure cloud was accidentally left open. So there's always something going on. So you should always have that precaution, even though if your environment's in the cloud. Your applications hosted in the cloud still need security. You should still have your endpoint detection, NGAV, that should still exist, or a firewall that's calling back to secure and encrypted traffic tunnel between the cloud and where you're working from. Having just simply a server in the cloud is not secure enough. Backing up your cloud data. Again, there should always be a backup. There are multiple options that have been offered by the cloud providers, but it's necessary for you to enable those devices and those options and make sure all your backup and data is encrypted. Like we said, we still insist you should always have an offline backup. Sometimes you overestimate what cloud can do for us. We have a product that's been just launched because of the security requirements coming from the US defense side, and I'm sure some sort of requirements will be following on the Canadian side as well. We are introducing a secure cloud where we have 3 layers of security for every client that's hosting their application. So this is your managed cloud service, has all those elements that we discussed as security as a service built into the cloud. If there's an application hosted on Marion.cloud site, it automatically has the agent installed that will protect you from antiviruses, protect you from ransomware protection, ransomware type of protections available, and all your data is automatically gets backed up and encrypted. Your restores of your servers are within hours. So this is again a defense level secured cloud that's just being introduced. If there's no such cloud exists in the market at this point, again, this was one of the element to satisfy the CMC requirement or Canadian defense level of requirements. And it's very easy to have your servers hosted in this type of cloud where every element of security, 24/7, 365 reporting, restoring if something happens to your data, even though if it's your mistake, you lost your server, it can still be restored from the backup because snapshotting of every server is being completed as a part of the solution. So again, this is the most secured cloud that's been offered or introduced in the last month alone. And by having applications in the cloud, it also validates and helps fill in all the templates that you require for this controls to be placed to satisfy all your Cybersecure Canada certification requirements. Sorry, the next. That's all we have from this controls perspective. Do we have any questions?
Thanks, Raj. I don't see any questions in the chat box yet. Is there any questions from anyone? Crickets, okay. So if there's no questions, I think we can close the call today. Thank you everyone for joining. And thank you, Raj, for today. That was great.
Thank you so much, guys. And if you have any questions, please feel free. Send it to Brandon on our email, and we'll be able to answer any of your concerns.
Perfect. Thanks a lot, Raj.
Thank you, guys.